Live from the TV30 studio, here is Jim Schneider.
We thank you for joining us here on WVCY Channel 30 for the inFocus program to keep you informed on critical issues. So many of the issues we talk about, they're not going to be covered by other media in the community or the state as a whole, but we seek to keep you informed on critical matters that affect your faith, your family, your freedoms here in the state of Wisconsin. And certainly we see also the proliferation of evil, sensuality that is taking place in our society today. We see the grooming of children that is taking place, whether it be through the educational system or whether it be through many different means of getting to young people. Tonight, folks, well, it actually goes back to about the year 2015 when drag queen story hours became quite popular in libraries taking place across the country. Since that time, there have been drag queen dinner theaters that have taken place, drag queen events at restaurants, bars, and schools. They have drag queen brunches that are being held in different locations. Even drag queen bingo is taking place in various locations. And further, into the public square, we have found, like in places like Fort Atkinson, where they brought the drag queens right into the farmers market. July 29th, also, we saw it come to Watertown, Wisconsin, with an event known as Pride in the Park at Riverside Park with a special appeal to children for this event. We're going to talk about that tonight. Our guests are here tonight to say, I object. With us, we'd like to welcome Gene Schmidt, Christian Leaders Coalition of Wisconsin, and also Marv Munyon, Christian Leaders Coalition of Wisconsin. Marv, for several decades, has been involved in many public policy issues, was a regular here on the inFocus program. Good to have you back here.
Good to be here, Jim.
And troubling situations that are going on, but to help introduce the subject, I'm going to show the kind of the poster that was used to present Pride in the Park this past July 29th. I mean, Watertown, Wisconsin, between 23 and 24,000 people that live in this community. Pride in the Park, Riverside Park, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., July 29th, featuring drag story time. Folks, that's an appeal to children. Kids dance party, and then drag shows following that kids dance party, 11 and 4 o'clock. Vendors and more. All ages welcome, we see listed there. Free admission. And then we have some very provocative pictures at the bottom of their poster there as well to lure young children into this event. I'd like to hear from both of you. And Gene, I'll start with you this evening as to what was your reaction when you learned about this coming to Watertown?
Well, my reaction was, first of all, I was shocked that it would come to Watertown, but my reaction was, we've got to pray, we've got to protest this, we've got to rally people. We stand against everything that stands for. And so I had a heart 2 years ago to get people together when I heard they were going to bring this to Watertown, to actually put a group together and protest peacefully against the whole thing, the drag show, the grooming, the doing this in front of kids. And Marv and I met with the chief of police, and we met with the Unity Project people, and we shared how terribly wrong this is for our community, and told the chief of police that if they would allow an event like that, they will draw the worst factions of people to come, groups that are not only going to oppose that, but bring a bad element to Watertown as far as even protesting that. And I was appalled. I was shocked. I heard what happened in Fort Atkinson, how the drag queen was dancing and then dropped to the ground and spread eagled his or her legs, and people were yelling and screaming, 400 people screaming in support of that.
My. Marv, Watertown, Wisconsin, 23 to 24,000 people approximately. We're sadly used to hearing about things like this happening in Milwaukee, happening in Madison, Dane County area. Right. But Watertown, Wisconsin, what was your reaction?
Well, my reaction, Jim, was I couldn't imagine it taking place. I've lived in Watertown since January of 1973. I'm now a resident of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, but I just couldn't believe that was happening. And as Gene mentioned, we met with the chief of police because I had read about the permits to give these kind of things to happen. And he told us that the Parks Department gave out the permits, and he said, I have nothing to say about it. And I said, well, according to what I read, they could give a permit, but then it goes before the chief of police and also the mayor of the city, and they can say no or yes. And he said, no, I have no input at all. He said the Ku Klux Klan could be given a permit, and my position is I have to protect the public. And so I told him, I said, well, I'm very familiar with Dane County now, and the Dane County Board, I said they have a homosexual there who's encouraging 10,000 homosexuals to come to Watertown and to protest against the people that don't want this. And I said, are you prepared to handle 10,000 people in Watertown? And he said, well, I don't know, I'll try. And
so both of you were engaged in really kind of giving a warning even before this came about.
yes.
Yeah, and I did a TV show interview with Channel 15. I don't know how they got my number, but they did an interview with me out of Madison, and I told them, as a Christian, as a family, you know, father of 3 kids, I said, I'm against everything this stands for. I said, this is a black eye to our community if we allow it. And told them, you know, we'll never support anything that's perverse, that hurts our kids, that presents this terrible message to our children. And they literally didn't edit out my interview. They played it that one night before the event. And then we had a peaceful protest there, and about 110 people came to support our protest.
So the Parks Department approves the permits?
It goes through the Parks Department.
Okay, and so we have the Parks Department. Do they have affiliation with the City Council at all in Watertown?
No, because the City Council, even at this point, does not have the authority to vote against those permits or for those permits. That's something we're trying to get changed. So the Parks Department sends that permit to the Fire Department, Police Department, City Attorney, Mayor's Office, the different department heads, and they confer as to the approval or disapproval of the permit.
Okay, so no doubt you've had communication with the Parks Department as well.
Yes.
And their response?
Well, I'll be real honest about it. I've been completely disappointed with the whole process. They did nothing to stop this event. It was this year, when they had the event July 29th, 4 days before, the chief of police came out and told city leaders, he's a part of that process. He said, I've heard there's a group coming, a Nazi group that wants to come to protest this event. Shut it down, don't allow it. And someone above him went over his head and said, we'll still let this go on.
And indeed, a Nazi group did come out.
And they did with weapons.
Neo-Nazi group.
Yes.
So I'm sure they were of great intimidation to people there?
Yeah, and Jim, this was the most unsafe event. I'm really shocked we didn't have a mass shooting. I'm not kidding. They came out screaming with weapons, at, of course, the gays, etc. I had nothing to do with them coming, but the police knew about them coming. And to me, if the city was aware of a group like this coming, and a chief of police says, don't put this on, you've got to start asking who in authority, whether the mayor, city attorney, whoever, who would give consent to that.
Yeah.
They came with 3 weapons. I was 10 feet away from them. They were screaming at the group, the gay whole event. And then the Gays Against Groomers came with 35 protesters. So you had 2 groups there. And it was so dangerous, Jim. It was everything the chief said, every reason. It was so unsafe. He said, don't allow this. This is not good for our community, just on the safety factor.
Yeah, and yet it did go on. And
Yep.
We understand, and the sad part of this, too, is that the media's attention went more on the the neo-Nazis that were there than to talk about the assault, Marv, really on children that are watching men who are dressed as women cavort about.
Well, and the first thing I did, Jim, also is I looked at the state statutes. And there's a lot of state statutes about exposing children to harmful material and obscene material and performances. And I thought, why is this even an issue? They should have said right away, we have state statutes that prevent us from allowing this to happen. And they should have said, I mean, we shouldn't even be here tonight talking about it because it should have been shut down completely. And I can't imagine that the mayor and the chief of police and those kind of people that are highly elected officials and in charge of safety, and especially young people, Jim, and we all know that child trafficking is a great big issue all across the world tonight. And it's across the state and across the nation here that we live in. And this is preparing these young people for that to happen more. And I can't imagine why they didn't just say, no, we have state statutes that prevent us from doing this. It would be bad enough if they were going to do this for adults, but these were young children. And there were children that, I don't know the ages, but they were certainly under 18.
Well, I see this was organized by a group called Unity Project of Watertown. They've not been in existence that long, have they?
No, not that long.
And doing this Pride in the Park, it was July 29th. And you actually, Gene, organized a prayer and protest for this event. So what was your intent going into it on this July 29th? What was your intent in going to the park?
My intent, I met with the people before at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I told everyone, we're going to pray for God to literally show our community and the folks there that we oppose this, peacefully oppose it. We oppose it on so many levels. As fathers, as parents, we oppose it as Christians. We oppose it as a country that once claimed to follow God. God, you know, we opposed it as far as we were peaceful. We actually evangelized. We shared the Lord with several people. We tried to be a light for Christ. But us being there was standing in the gap and saying this is against everything we stand for as a community with 24 churches. This is against what we stand for as parents. This is against what we stand for of people who love kids and care about the community.
I'd like to get your reaction to this from both of you, because you mentioned the number of churches there in the community. And I was looking at the Watertown Daily Times, and they had quotes from a couple of pastors. Emmanuel Evangelical Lutheran Church pastor Karina Schiltz was in the prayer booth offering a welcome to those who represent the LGBTQ community. Watertown's First Congregational United Church of Christ, Reverend Christopher Ross, did the same. So much of Christianity sends an intolerant voice. We're here to send a tolerant alternative voice of God who loves all, Ross said. Marv, your response?
Well, Jim, we were not protesting. We don't hate anybody. We hate sin. And it's just amazing to me. I mean, I've lived in Watertown for all these years. I moved there in January of 1973. And all of these churches, we couldn't rally the churches at all. They just didn't want any part of it. And it's just amazing. And we met, there were four of, I believe it was 3 or 4, I think it was 4, of the Unity people came down and met with us when we met with the chief of police. And they said to me, we all go to church just like you. And I said, well, you don't read the same Bible I read, and you don't pray to the same Lord that I pray to, or you wouldn't be pushing this. And they said, no, we're Christians just like you.
Wow.
Well, they aren't Christians like me, Jim.
And so, Gene, that's where you went. You said somebody's got to come stand in the gap. I mean, obviously, this is a disregard for what God has told us in His Word.
Yeah, because God's Word was the authority even in law when America started out as a country, the 13 charters, our history as a nation. And we stood against it. because it's perverse on so many levels. It's against God's word. It's against the true word of God. It's against anyone's Christian values that really stand for Christ. It's like what Isaiah said, I looked for a man to stand in the gap. Well, there's no better way to stand in the gap than stand in the gap.
Right, right.
When you're facing some kind of situation that defies God's word, God's lifestyles that God says is biblical, and you're standing in the gap, and it was the right thing to do. It really was. It was.
So you were there. You're observing this. The drag story time. You saw the kids' dance party that took place, and the drag shows that were going on there as well. Describe what you saw there.
Well, they're men dressed as women, and they're dancing, and they're doing their different dance routines.
Provocatively?
Provocatively. People go, it's not sexualized, it's not provocative. I never buy that because, number one, look at the flyer. The flyer in itself, you can see, it's provocative. It's so unnatural because think about, as I said to you on the radio not long ago, you wake up in 1955 and you tell grandfather, I'm Johnny, but today I feel like Betty. And I'm going to put on a dress and I'm going to go down to the park and dance in front of kids. You think about back then what that generation would have said about that kind of conduct.
Yeah.
It's provocative, it's grooming. They hate the word grooming, but it's grooming. What is the intent behind this? It's to teach our kids this lifestyle's okay. It's to push in the envelope that men dressing as women, dancing in a sexualized way, with big brassieres and all the things that they dress, the way they dress. And it is absolutely a sexualized dance.
And taking money from children?
Yeah. I mean, this year, kids were giving money to the dancers. And the first year, I know this year there was money transferred where they were giving money to the dance. My heart breaks, Jim, literally to look over that fence and see young kids, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old watching this.
Marv, I say shame on parents in all of this as well.
Well, I mentioned that to the chief of police, and he said, if I had my way, I would arrest the parents because they shouldn't be there with their children. I wouldn't have children of mine at an event like that.
Yeah.
But he said, I can't do that. And I said, well, you can prevent it from happening so that it doesn't go on, though. You could try your best to put a stop to it. And he swore him down that he couldn't. He said, I can't. My only position in this is for the safety of the public. And I said, well.
So bottom line is the authority rests with the Parks Department? They have this committee, with the firemen and...
Well, I said, and the Parks Committee is an appointed committee.
By who?
The city council, I guess. I don't really know. I haven't fully studied the structure of the Watertown city government, but there's somebody over the Parks Department. They can't be a law unto themselves.
Right.
They can't do anything that they shouldn't do, or they should seek community structure to do these kind of things, but they apparently don't have to do that. And that was why I was just appalled that the chief of police said, I have no authority to do anything about it.
The organizers, Trent and Robin, is it Kangas?
Yep.
Okay, well, and I saw articles in the paper say their whole desire about this is making this, and putting it in quotes, family-friendly. That it's going to be a family-friendly event. But when you got people dressing provocatively in this regard and all kinds of sexual gyrations and everything else that's going on, how do we consider that as being family-friendly?
Well, Jim, Marv brought up a good point. Let's just go to the city council. Let's take their drag dancing show to the council. And let's tell the council members, bring your kids and watch this and see what you think of it in front of your kids. See what you think of the way they're dancing, how they're dressed, the the perverse part of it.
Sure.
And nobody, Jim, nobody with God in their heart, nobody with decency in their heart could ever say, this is decent. This is what boggles my mind. how we have to battle in our town with so many churches, with Christian leaders, our mayor, and others that claim the faith. This should have been shut down the first year and declared indecent with state statutes that support that. Our local statute on decency supports that. And they should have flat out said, this is absolutely indecent.
Marv, do you believe this is in violation of state law?
Yes, I do. I really do, Jim. There's a lot of state statutes. Section 94811 is exposing a child to harmful material and harmful descriptions or narrations. And then there's also obscene material performance in 944.21. And there's some of this language here, Jim, that I don't even feel comfortable to be able to read on the air tonight. But, you know, it talks about harmful material. And it says harmful material is a description or a narrative account, means any explicit and detailed description of narrative account of sexual excitement, sexually explicit conduct, sadomasochistic abuse, physical torture, or brutality that taken as a whole is harmful to children. And harmful means, and then it says any picture, photograph, drawing, sculpture, motion picture, film, or similar visual representation or image of a person or person of the human body that depicts nudity, sexually explicit conduct, sadomasochistic abuse, physical torture, or brutality that is harmful to children. And then it also talks about books and pamphlets and magazines and printed material, recordings. And I can't read all of the language that's here, but this goes to libraries and schools, and not only to the general public, but and
Here we are bringing the farmers market in Fort Atkinson,
Yes.
just to the general public, and Riverside Park in Watertown as well.
And Jim, when you have men dress up like women,
there.
scantily dressed as women, and performing a dance, and laying down on the ground and going through all these gyrations, that is harmful to children.
Yeah.
It's teaching them that this is okay, this should be accepted. And
Some libraries have had the men laying down on the floor and children crawling over the top of them
Yes,
too. And,
yes.
and there is a desensitization that is going on as this being acceptable. And again, I'm going back to the word grooming, and they dislike the word grooming, but this is exactly what's going on. And friends, I'd like to take you back to a few years ago. There was a drag queen by the name of Dylan Pontiff, and he was testifying before the Lafayette, Louisiana Council in regard to their drag queen story hour, because people were upset, said we don't want to have this, and he went to testify, and he is the one who said we are grooming the next generation. Let's go to the videotape, let you see.
Hi, my name is Dylan Pontiff. I'm actually going to be one of the drag queens reading for Drag Queen Storytime. So apparently to a lot of people in this room, I'm the big boogeyman. And as you can see, I'm probably the most unintimidating person you've ever seen in your entire life. I decided to do this event whenever it was introduced because I have nieces and nephews that I love very much, and I am a person that has been through a lot in their lives. I've been bullied most of my life for being a gay male, being not necessarily what the typical man is. And I thought that this event could be something that shows people and shows children, especially at that age, that understanding that people are different than you doesn't necessarily make them unnormal or makes them not good. And I think that what's truly sad is that once I was announced as the person reading, the amount of hate that I received because of this resolution that is been presented to this board. I've been called an it, I've been called disgusting, and I don't think any of these people know me well enough to say any of those things, but I think that the true misunderstanding of what this event is supposed to be and what me dressing up in drag for it is going to be. I am not there to push any kind of agenda. I was told at the library council meeting last night that I'm pushing the trans agenda. I'm pushing an overly sexualized agenda, and that is furthest from the truth. I am just as talented as a singer or a dancer or anyone that has a special talent. It just mine is dressing up as a woman and entertaining a crowd. Now, everywhere you can go, you can see that people can change their views for certain audiences. Just as much as someone can be an actor and be in an actor movie for a rated R movie, and they can go around and be in a G-rated movie, I can go and entertain an adult in a club, but also entertain a group of students and young children. I'm able to do that because I'm an adult and I know how to filter myself. And I just think that it is implorable of some of the opinions that I've seen and some of the looks I received here tonight. The eyes that people give you whenever they think that you are the one that's in support of this event is truly disgusting. And I am not here to obviously change anyone's views about me, but I'm here to let you know that this event is something that's going to be very beautiful, and for the children and the people that support it are going to realize that this is going to be the grooming of the next generation. We are trying to groom the next generation to not see the way that they just did. And just because I said that, you heard the little plure of people behind me. It's disgusting. We are trying to teach people to be tolerable, to be patient, to be loving. And the fact of the matter is that I'm standing right here and there's probably 50 people behind me looking at me with daggers, wishing that I would probably die in a car wreck whenever I leave here. It's truly implorable. And that is what we're trying to do at Drag Queen Storytime. We're trying to raise people to be loving and caring individuals. And I really hope that this event is going to do that for not only just the children at this event, but children in the future. Thank you.
Okay, now, folks, unbelievable what we just said. We're here, we're going to be loving and caring, as he just throws everybody under the bus, you know, sitting behind him. What kind of love, what kind of caring is that? It's number one. But he says we're not pushing any agenda. We are grooming the next generation. What a conflict of terms.
Absolutely, Jim, absolutely. And he's just admitting that. And I don't hate him for that, but I wish he would realize that we would like to see him come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ as his Savior, and that would change the whole picture. But he admits that he's grooming the next generation.
Gene, your response to that?
That's their agenda. Their agenda is to groom, to get kids to say this lifestyle's okay, this kind of perversion is okay. And do we think the devil's got holy motives? No, the devil's behind this. Evil, it's evil. And it's so evil, why in 2023 can people not see that America 50 to 100 years ago would have called this debauchery of the highest level? And now today we're so dummied down, we're so desensitized, we're woke. We're afraid to speak out. We're afraid, even in some churches, we're afraid to stand up and say this is indecent, wrong, perverse, hurting our kids, and defilement. What happens if these kids start calling that normal?
Some would say, why don't you just let bygones be bygones? You know, this is last July. Why worry about it now? But the point is, the Watertown City Council has been taking this up. You've not been silent on the issue. So tell us what you've been going on behind the scenes. You've been trying to work with council members and trying to look at another approach toward this.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say that some of the leaders on the Welfare and Safety Commission, they're trying to put together a permit application that has more restriction in it. And so they met a couple weeks ago, and they're meeting this Thursday. And so they're trying to deal with things like the cost of the event with protections, police, security costs. They're trying to deal with it as far as child protection issues. They're trying to deal with a few things that we have told the city they need to deal with. Mm-hmm. This thing, in the first year, they had SWAT, they had snipers there because of the threat against my group from Madison. I bet they had 80 to 100 police people from around the city, the county, state patrol. The cost in the thousands and thousands of dollars. This year's event, I know it's cost well over $20,000. of extra security, et cetera. We're telling the city, don't make the taxpayers have to pay extraordinary costs that outside of normal police protection or police, let's just say, at the event, keeping things, safe and et cetera. We feel those costs should be paid for by the Unity Project or any group that puts on an event like that.
The City Council is going to be meeting, at least the Public Safety and Welfare Committee. Let's put the information up on the screen. They're going to be meeting this coming Thursday in Watertown, Wisconsin. And the Public Safety, it's 5 p.m. That is going to be held at the Municipal Building, 10 Jones Street in Watertown. And they're coming together to talk about some of these changes. And we'll come back now to the document here. But the document itself shows what their agenda is, and the section 428-7 is on special events. And so this is what they're going to be doing pertaining to special events. But I just want to jump ahead to a red line here, which are some proposed changes that they're going to make. The applicants are required now to pay 50% of the estimated extraordinary services prior to the special event. Not sure what they view as being extraordinary services. Is that the extra protection? Do we know?
Well, Jim, at the last meeting, the city attorney tried to say, because of First Amendment rights, any extra police services would not fall under extraordinary circumstances because they have First Amendment rights, and if people protest, then those costs and extra costs should be absorbed by the city rather than the group doing the event. We do not feel that way. A majority of people that were at the meeting, well, the majority was definitely conservative people. We feel extraordinary costs are even police, ambulance, other protections, barricades, trucks they bring in, shut down a whole 2 to 3 block area. We feel all those thousands of dollars of extra costs should fall under extraordinary circumstances.
Okay, but according to this, likely not.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wow. Now, the other thing that they're amending here is food and vendors have to meet certain requirements through the health department. So that's the change that they're making. But then I'm going to go to the part where she talked about child protection plan. And it appears at their last meeting that they had put a plan in place to have a child protection plan. And according to this, which we just downloaded today, they're striking that through. So it appears from their proposal that they're not going to follow through on a child protection plan. Here's what the plan would have said. It says if children are likely to be present at the event, the applicant must answer all relevant questions on the application, verifying that an approved child protection plan is in place. All performers who have direct contact with children will be subject to a criminal background check. And according to this latest document, they're striking that through.
Yeah, and my answer to that is then your permit, whatever you come up with, the strongest part of this permit should be the child protection part. And to strike that out is saying, and if they keep it that way, then leaders are saying, we're not going to protect the kids properly. We're not going to do what makes sense to anyone to do criminal background checks. It's the wisest thing to do for events to protect kids from assault. Protect kids from, so many things can happen, trafficking and other things.
So it looked like there were aldermen on board with you in doing that, but somebody has struck that through.
Well, it's not aldermen. These are people on that committee.
They're not aldermen, rather city council members.
Yeah, and some of them are on the committee, and I feel what they're doing is striking out something that the majority of people asked them to do, makes sense to do. And to me, they're watering down, and they're going to make it of none effect on as far as the most important clause is how to protect the kids and to take background checks away. And the argument is, well, the city shouldn't be involved in that. No, you should. You're doing the permitting. You have police force. You have detectives. You have agencies that get paid in the city, and they should be using those resources to do background checks. Hey, guess what? Do we think there won't be events where someone will come and have ulterior motives? And you got to rule out the worst case scenarios. You've got to rule out the what-ifs.
And Marv, we have seen in drag events in other communities that when they have actually gone through to do checks on some of these individuals, their records are not too good.
Yeah, they're finding out, Jim, that they're not squeaky clean, let's say. And those background checks are important. And I'm not familiar with the thing that we're talking about here as Gene is, but they certainly shouldn't have struck out that information. And Jim, when you look at what they did last year and what they did this year,
it's going to grow.
It's going to grow. And who knows what may happen this coming year if they let this go again, because there's going to, it just breeds more, and who knows, it may be an armed shootout the next year.
Well, the other issue, too, I mean, what we saw happen in Dane County and in Milwaukee, all of a sudden they're allowing for these naked bike rides to take place. Are we going to have a naked bike ride now go through Watertown, through Riverside Park? And this is artistic expression and you know, to help, you know, promote naturalism and environment and constitutional rights?
Well,
I mean,
that's what this leads to, Jim. It opens the door, and if you don't stop it at the lowest level, it's going to increase and just get completely out of hand. And that's what we see happening here.
Gene, what can people do?
Well, let me make one other point, and then I'll share about that. They're worried about a lawsuit. And you know what? I called one of the leaders up, and I said, you better be worried about a lawsuit if a kid's hurt or assaulted. You better worry about that kind of lawsuit, because the threat of a lawsuit, I feel when you stand for decency, we're a city of 20-some thousand people. I wouldn't doubt the majority of people that have families and kids would support not allowing things that hurt our kids. What did we do? We have a rally planned Thursday night in Waukesha. We urge people to come. We urge people to get involved locally with their city council to make sure that these things are in place prior to people wanting to do these kind of events in their city. We urge churches to get involved and come attend school board meetings, council meetings. We do urge protesting peacefully at these events to stand for, you know, the faith and what's decent.
Stand in the gap.
Stand in the gap. We do not urge violence or screaming at people. We urge showing Christ to hurting people, lost people. And the last thing we urge people to do is pray. Pray, because as Marv said, if this permeates, each year it's going to get worse and worse. And they're going to want to encroach on every element of our city and have us, you know what? I told them, you're never going to get me or any of those that really love the Lord, you're never going to get us to say this is okay for our town.
Friends, let me just, we'll put this back up on the screen again. First of all, this Thursday there is a hearing at 5 o'clock. The committee is going to be meeting and voting on these proposed changes here, but they struck out that child safety, the child protection plan. 5 o'clock, that gets underway. This is in Watertown at the Municipal Building, 10 Jones Street. And then just an hour and a half later, there's another event taking place in Waukesha, Wisconsin. That's called an Awake to Righteousness Rally. This Thursday, 6:30 p.m. at Tuscan Hall, 409 Delafield Street in Waukesha. And you can be a part of this event as well. And you may say, well, that's Watertown. But friends, what's happening in little tiny Watertown is going to come to your community as well, to your county park, to your city parks. And that's why these events are being spoken about even on this program. Now, again, we have said this is about getting your children. It really is. And friends, I'm going to give you just two examples of this because it is my opinion. It is all about grooming children. We heard that from a drag queen in his own words. We are grooming the next generation. Going to play a clip for you from the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, who put together a song. We're just going to hear a little portion of it. Indeed, we're coming for your children.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you. You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
Just an excerpt from that song. It goes on for several more minutes, but that's one example I'd like to provide for you. And let me give you one other one. And it happened in New York City this past summer as well. It was the drag march that was taking place. And we've had to blur or digitize some of this here, but you're going to hear the chant as they're going down the street. We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. You see, friends, that's what it's all about. We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. We'd like to open our phone lines tonight to get your reaction to these issues. Watertown, Wisconsin, folks, not very big in population. Fort Atkinson, not very big in population, but these are the communities that are being targeted, and maybe your community will be next. Phone number 414-935-3030, 414-935-3030. Toll free, you can reach us at 1-800-733-8830, 1-800-733-8830. If you'd like to text in your question or your brief comment, you can send your text with your first name and the city you're texting from to 414-439-3585. That's 414-439-3585. Marv, you just saw two videos there. Your response?
Well, Jim, when they're saying we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids, and if you think we're trying to convert your children, you're correct. We will convert your children. Mm-hmm. And Jim, we all of us know it's not a hidden thing at all. Pedophilia is a wide open market today across America. Mm-hmm. Every state, and I said if the truth ever comes out about what it's all about, people are going to be totally shocked when they find out that there are so many people in high places, elected office, and high police bureaucrats that are involved in pedophilia. And it's all coming for the children. And Jim, we saw this, it started back, I remember when the Man-Boy Love Association came out. And they said, we believe that having relationships with young children is safer because they're not as AIDS prone. And I said, it's just going to keep mushrooming, and we're seeing the results of that. Yeah. And they're reaching out to all, and they're coming after the children. And I can't imagine parents wanting their children to see this kind of activity in their local cities. Mm-hmm. And yet they do. But Jim, it's going to get worse and worse. And the other appalling thing to me is why the churches aren't speaking up. I mean, if this would have happened 10 years ago, you'd have had all these churches in these communities saying, we're not going to tolerate this. It's just wrong. And that's what I tried to tell those people when they said, we're just like you, we're Christians, we go to church every Sunday. I said, well, you don't read the same Bible and you don't serve the same Lord as I do, or you wouldn't be saying that.
Let's go to Jean calling in tonight from Palmyra. Jean, you're on the air.
Hi, I just want to say hi, first of all, to Gene. He is my former brother-in-law. This is Jean Ann, and commend him for his lifelong work, that he has devoted his life to carrying God's message and the impact that it has on, has had on my life and on that of my children. And, I have watched over the last probably 10 years on this particular channel so many programs about all the things that we are now seeing and how the perversion of the world has taken hold. But it's been 60 or more years of this happening. And, I think what Gene and the other gentlemen on the show are doing are the right things to do. We need to have people see the light in the world and, and God in our lives. And I know that Gene and his wife Ann, have been incredible examples of that. And, prayer, again, is key. I just think, we have to have more men stepping up and standing in the gap. Yeah. So keep up the good work, and, just God willing, the tide will turn, and we'll have, people realize that this just is terrible. I mean, watching this, the people that you put on this show, you just can see, there is no heart for God in them, and we have to somehow help them see the light.
Yeah, it's really defiance against God. Gene, thank you for the comments here tonight. Appreciate it. We've got John next in Milwaukee. Hi, John, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much for taking my call. I guess 4 points real quick. Horrible parenting. Absolutely horrible. I don't know what kind of an idiot would bring their kids to this. And we can all remember when we were 7 to 10 years old. I can't remember, maybe 2 weeks ago, but these are going to be very, very vivid memories. And this is a taught behavior. This is a learned behavior. This is not normal. Number two, real quickly, we were groomed for this years ago by a wascally rabbit, Uncle Milty with lipstick, some guy on MASH wearing a dress. These people, they all have their coexist, and they're all tolerant, except in the case of a Christian. And as far as the TV reporter from Madison who edited everything, these are all leftist libs that have an agenda. We think of how we were educated years ago and how these people are so different 2 or 3 generations later. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, John. And again, Marv, years ago you were on this program every Monday night dealing with issues, and we've seen that steady, the slide that's been happening, and so many things you warned about years ago are now coming to fruition today.
Yes, they are, Jim, and it's amazing. Here in the state of Wisconsin, we fly the gay flag over the Capitol, and Gene and I I wrote a resolution to try to get July as Christian Heritage Month, and we fly the Christian flag, and they won't have anything to do with it.
Right.
The legislature won't even take up a bill to do that. So we're losing ground all the time, Jim, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine if they were flying the gay flag when you and I were doing this program all those years.
Yeah. We've got Brad next in West Dallas. Hi, Brad. You're on the air.
Hi, Brother Jim. Tell you about these people are feeding fuel to pornography, pedophilia, and child trafficking, criminal offenses, and they're polluting the minds of kids. You can't unsee this sewage.
Yeah.
What did the city fathers in Watertown say when you, Mr. Munyon, brought up the state statutes to them?
Well, I'm like Gene. They seem to be scared to death. They keep saying they have their First Amendment rights, and I said, yes, we have First Amendment rights, but there's limits on the First Amendment. You can't go into a theater and holler fire because that's against the law. And so this is much more. This is like building a fire in young people, and so. They have First Amendment rights, but there are limits to that right. You can't do a lot of things. You can't do and say anything you want to say now. So here again, they should be concerned about young people and what they're doing to children. And these children that are exposed to this in another 5 or 10 years, they're going to be the drag queens, and they're going to be. Their families are going to be in trouble.
And they're grooming young children to do this right now, too.
They're grooming young children.
Yep. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
By the way, our phone number, 414-935-3030, 414-935-3030. But you can also text in your first name, city that you're texting from, brief comment or question at 414-439-3585. I'll get to some text here in just a moment. Mai in Milwaukee, you're on the air.
Yes, Jerry. This is Jerry.
Oh, Jerry. Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
No, this is Mai. He said your name was Jerry.
Now, go ahead with your question or comment, please.
Well, anyway, I was calling because, I heard you saying that the older generation is going after the younger, far as relationship-wise. And I want you to understand that the reason why it's like that because the younger generation is not high in sexuality, but at the same time they are pure. There are profound seeds of honest purpose. And the reason why we have to regenerate with the younger generation because now the world is dealing with experience, not age.
Well, I tell you, let me say, Mai, that certainly perversion is never acceptable. It's never acceptable, and relationships with a minor are not acceptable. Sexual relations, and that is what's being fostered through events just like this, and trying to desensitize young minds, innocent minds in this regard. Let me get to some text here. This is Al in South Milwaukee saying this is definitely good is considered evil, evil considered good. It said this is democratic way to create confusion on our rights, especially everyone will give up. It's pedophilia out in the open. Can strippers work in the streets? It's can we groom our children publicly to love God? Scripture warns us about a time when good is called evil and evil good.
Yeah. Woe unto them.
Woe unto them is right.
And the thing that I really can't fathom is leaders on our public safety commission who should be caring the most about our kids, protecting our kids. It's just unfathomable that, as Marv said, we've even got to debate this. It should be an automatic, this is indecent, this is wrong, this is terrible for our community. And our town's gotten a black eye from what happened in July on many levels. 4 Christians were arrested. And it could have been a shooting and all these things. But the worst thing is, how can we as leaders in our community stand in front of God and say, I didn't have enough boldness to say this was wrong, not only in front of men, but in front of you.
Now, I understand with some of the arrests you were talking that saying, no, you're not supposed to use an amplification system.
Well, they arrested one young man. I mean, the thing is, they strain at a gnat and swallow the camel. There was a young man that had a little Bluetooth speaker and was reciting Galatians. And the police went over there, and there was a video of it, and quite honestly, they manhandled the kid and arrested him, and then there were 3 other people that got arrested.
Let me look ahead to the summer of 2024. If this is left unchecked, Marv, I'm going to start with you. Where is this going to head?
Well, it's anybody's guess where this will go, because we had the neo-Nazi group came in armed, and nothing happened. They got away with that. And Jim, they were making more noise than this guy anybody that was speaking.
Got a picture. Maybe we can put this on screen here as well. This is from the Watertown Times.
They were all dressed in their command paraphernalia, and nothing happened to them. And what's going to prevent a bigger group coming in? Or not only neo-Nazis, but the Antifa, whatever. We see this happening in a lot of cities, Jim, but Watertown is a smaller city that seems to be a target now, and they know that nothing's going to happen if they come in. They can come in. Anybody can get a permit. and it's going to just build and build and build. And that's exactly what we tried to talk to the police chief about last year. We said, if you don't stop it this year, this year that we just had this, it's going to get bigger, and it'll get bigger next year.
Yeah. Gene, you echo that concern?
Infection only gets worse. I honestly believe our city is going to be open up for possible violence. Could there be a mass shooting?
And you're not advocating that?
Not at all. I'm totally against it. I'm totally against Nazis coming to this. I'm totally against militant groups coming. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is, if they do come, you know, what would happen if they took the law in their own hands? Mm-hmm. You know, you got to think about it. Mass shootings are all over the country. And these people were crazy enough. This Nazi group was crazy enough. They could have done something like that. The other thing that'll happen, our city's reputation will be totally hurt, totally, you know, maligned, because the city did not have enough. If they don't pass a strong permit process and ordinance, our city will be looked at like we don't have standards. We're not protecting our kids. You know, city image matters, reputation matters. And decency should be the heart of what your city stands for. The last thing that happens, it will kind of illuminate where the church is at. Are we going to stand in force against these things, or kind of let the walls just kind of fall down and not stand like we should against this? And I honestly think, Jim, this is the worst thing for our town to have in our city park, with a town of so many people and so many churches on so many levels.
We're going to squeeze one last call in. Mayville, Wisconsin. Kelly, you're on the air.
Hi. I'd just like to say some of this is spiritual, and we need to pray that God reaches these people. Yeah. And I don't even know if some of them can be reached, but we have to pray. That's the main thing.
They can be reached, Kelly. Thank you for the call, and a great point here, because so we read 1 Corinthians 6. We see the fact that some were homosexual, and the passage says, such were some of you, but you're washed, you're cleansed. And there is hope, there is cleansing, there's forgiveness that's found in Jesus Christ. Let me just mention the two events that are taking place this coming Thursday. First of all, in Watertown, Wisconsin, the Public Safety and Welfare Committee is meeting at 5 o'clock. That's in the Municipal Building on Jones Street in Watertown. That's at 5 p.m. And then also the group that is represented tonight, Christian Leaders Coalition of Wisconsin, is holding this Awake to Righteousness event this coming Thursday, November 16th, 6:30 p.m. at Tuscan Hall in Waukesha. That's 409 Delafield Street. And Marv, thank you so much for being here tonight.
My pleasure, Jim, to be here. Not a pleasure to talk about the topic that we had, but we have done our best to alert people to what's going on, and we trust that people will stand up and be counted.
Amen. And Gene, thank you as well for being here.
No, thank you, Jim. And I want to concur with the last call. Our goal is to see people come to Christ. Yeah. This is not about hating them. It's not about, it's just about standing for Christ. But I told, in the last year...
We're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time here. But thank you, Gene, for being with us.
Thank you.
And friends, thanks for watching WVCY Channel 30's In Focus. Have a good night.